Hello everyone, it's Galina for Studio Katia. Today I want to share with you my favorite stamping and embossing tips using large background stamps. I will share two options of using this beautiful big background stamp set called Floral Garden. I will start with blending on the heavy white watercolor paper. I'm using a watercolor paper because I'm going to make a little bit of watercoloring, and the texture of the watercolor paper will help me to create another texture with embossing powder. I will talk about it later, and now I started applying a bright pink color of distress ink. I am applying this color on the bottom of my card panel, and by the way, I cut out a paper panel a little bit bigger than standard A2 size card to have enough space for die cutting. This pink color of distress ink called Picked Raspberry, and the second color I'm applying is a Carrot Pumpkin. I'm applying it in the center and I'm trying to blend it with the previous color. I go back and forth to mix those colors. On the top of the card panel, I'm applying yellow distress ink. This ink is called Mustard Seed, and again I'm trying to blend it with an orange color to create a nice gradient on the card panel. After my ink blending is done, I'm going to make a heat embossing. And here is an important thing. If you don't want to create any additional texture with an embossing powder, you must be sure that inks are completely dry. You can heat set them with a heat gun or leave them to dry for some time. And to get a nice crisp image, wipe the panel with an anti-static pillow. I skip the heat process and I will try to leave some tiny amount of the white powder on the flower petals. I didn't use any acrylic block for this stamp, I simply flipped it over and pressed with my hands. You can use any heavy and flat item to press the stamp. Just be sure you pressed all the parts of the large stamp. Next, I'm covering the panel with a white embossing powder. And to remove all extra powder, I'm hardly tapping on the back of the panel. Luckily, watercolor paper and distress inks hold some of the powder, and it creates additional details on the stamped panel. And as I was saying, it's hard to get such effect if you will heat set inks on the panel. Next, I'm going to heat emboss all the panel with my heat gun. To add more interest to the panel, I am coloring some petals with same distress inks I use for the ink blending. And I'm going to color all the flowers on the bottom with a pink color, flowers in the center with an orange color, and on the top I will color the flowers with yellow ink. I do a super simple coloring, just adding inks where the shadows should be. I don't blend the colors very well, I want to leave harsh lines to add more contrast on the card background. I colored all the flowers, and now I'm going to cut out the panel using the biggest die from Scallop frame die set. I run it through my die cutting machine and I get a nice scallop rectangle panel and a thin scallop border. I will keep this colorful border for my other future project. Next, I want to make some embellishments for my card. I'm going to use a small flower stamp from WREATH stamp set. Also, I will use sentiment stamps from this set. I place the flower stamp on the small acrylic block, and I'm going to stamp this image 3 times using Copic-friendly ink called Memento Black ink. I'm going to color these flowers with Copic markers, and you can use any medium you may have. Also, you can color these flowers with distress inks used for the card background or any other medium. But I found in my stash perfectly matched Copic colors. They are Y08, YR04, and RV09. Actually, it's the first time when I'm using RV09 because it's a super bright and intense pink color, and it was hard to find other matching colors for this specific marker. But this pink shade is perfect for my today's card. On these flowers, I do not make a super smooth blending with markers because they are quite small, and I'm just making a colorful lines on the flowers. And this bright pink color looks fantastic on them. At last, I'm going to fussy cut these flowers. Next, I cut out an oval frame from the white glitter paper. I used two smallest dies from the nesting oval die set. And I can stamp a sentiment on the card background, so I'm going to stamp it on the piece of vellum using archival black ink. Using double-sided adhesive tape, I attached vellum to the oval frame. And next I'm going to foam mount this frame on the card panel and add flowers on the top of it. I used a bright pink cardstock to create a standard A2 card base, and I'm attaching my panel on it. To finish this card, I want to add some bright accents. So I'm adding shiny lemon burst pills and two tiny crystal butterflies. I'm gluing the embellishments with liquid glue from Studio Katia. And here is my finished card with a beautiful colorful card background. I love all the texture on this card. And I have one more card example for you. With the same stamp, I made a heat embossing on the pink cardstock. For the similar card, you can stamp the background image with a white pigment ink if you don't have an embossing stuff. So I cut out the embossed panel with the same Scallop rectangle die, and with the smallest oval die, I cut out a little window in the center of the card panel. Also, I prepared a same pink card base and an oval frame. I cut out this frame from the light pink cardstock. Also, I will use another sentiment stamp from the FLORAL WREATH stamp set. I'm going to make a heat embossing directly on the card base. I covered it up with anti-static powder and I'm stamping the sentiment in the center. I'm using my floral card panel as a guide to do that. I heat set the white powder with a heat gun, and next I'm adding a plastic sheet behind the oval window. And I'm adding a lot of foam tape around it. It will be a base for the shaker. On the card base, I'm putting a lot of pink crystals, but I'm removing the biggest one, because they will not be moving really well in the shaker, and I just don't want to add 2 layers of foam tape. I cover the card base with a card panel, and to finish my card, I'm adding the pink frame on it. This shaker card looks so fun, and floral card background adds a nice classy look. And I can play with shaker card all day long. I love both this card. I made them with the same materials, but they look totally different. I hope you like this video. Full supply list you can find in the video description below. Don't forget to subscribe and see you soon. Bye!